Alright, welcome back to the solar system series known as Fixed Fire, where we're talking about the only fixed fire sign in this ecliptic known as Leo. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Venus and Libra. I mean, not Venus and Libra, Venus and Leo. So, let's talk about Venus a little bit, right? Venus is the planet of love, appreciation, values, as well as how you relate to others, right? So, with that being the case, and this being in Leo, let's talk about Leo a little bit. So, Leo is born from the 5th house. The 5th house is like, it's basically just the house of the sun. It's correlated to the sun, so it's the light you emit, and also the the light you like to engage with. So, with this being the case, the light you emit has to deal with creativity, entertainment, and all the facets of how you're entertained, what you're entertained by, how you entertain others, as well as just like, I guess that's not kind of really it. But it's also just, kind of how you deal with kids a little bit. Like I said, your creativity, just your own way to just emit and engage with light. You know what I'm saying? Just your own form of just expression. It's just pure expression, and like paying attention to that expression, which would be kind of the opposite of it, in both sides of the spectrum. So, with that being the case, and this being where Leo's born from, this will be the vibration that it carries as a whole. And then everything else is kind of just just more of a local way to understand it. So, with that being said, let's move on to the planets. The planets that Leo deals with it's ruled by the sun, and then it is away in Saturn, as well as Uranus a little bit, but outer planets, so you know how that goes. And with that being the case, this kind of builds the archetype of Leo and how you can understand it. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is the first thing I mentioned, Leo being fixed fire. So what is fixed fire? Fixed fire is being fixated on your own way of feeling and seeing. So, if we break that down a little bit, this kind of touches on fire being just perspective. The angle and the mentality that you kind of come at things from. This is just like your perspective is literally when you're coming at a certain subject. If you're coming at it from this angle, this is how I see and feel about this. And if I'm coming at it from this angle, this is how I see and feel about this. Now, moving around, this is kind of like the Sagittarius side of things, where it's like I want to look at things from the group perspective as a whole and be able to look at things from every different perspective and every angle, so I can understand how I can create a general philosophy for how the collective conscious views things. You know what I'm saying? And then Aries is just like, fuck that, we got a fire to begin with, I just want to just create, so I'm just going to come from this angle, I'm going to come from this angle, I'm going to come from this angle, And it's just like, you're just kind of bouncing around, like, emitting light. Now, where Leo takes a hold and actually sort of, dibbles and dabbles in both of those, is it just picks one of those positions that Aries may have created and Sagittarius may have expanded upon, and it just sits in one and really takes that to heart and actually expands on it greatly. So it basically, it's just you can look at the Leo fire as being like, it's what's the word? It's like a fire in a fireplace, man. It may be on, it may be off, but it's always in that space and location. So it understands this area of this angle very well, right? So with this being in Venus, let's talk about the traits a little bit. So Venus in Leo. So, what is a Venus in Leo? Let's start off with how they relate to others, right? So, a Venus in Leo person, their relationships and how they relate to others is always a grand situation, If a Venus in Leo person is rolling down the street and they ain't seen their best friend in a freaking year, say it's like, they just went to college, they kept in touch, but they haven't seen them physically in a while, so they're like taking a break for the semester, so on and so forth. So if we look at Venus and Leo this way, it's kind of like they would be rolling down the street. Oh shit, what's up, best friend? And then they just freaking they would jump out of a moving car. It'd be a whole thing. Everybody on the street would be looking at this person trying to relate to the source and be like, oh my god, it's a whole big deal. It's a whole situation. Imagine the freaking fireplace, the fireplace example that I gave. And just like, if it's a situation like that, they're just taking a whole gallon of gasoline and going, whoop, whoop, In a situation like that, what would happen? The fire would shoot all the way through the chimney and everybody would see it. If you're walking down the street, if you're driving down the street, you're going to be seeing people there's no way, you just can't miss a freaking fire shooting out of a freaking chimney. Like, that never happens. When's the last time you saw a fire shooting out of a chimney? Exactly, you know. This is how Venus and Leo people relate to others, you know. And on the kind of flip side of things, they like they sort of get a little, they can get a little butthurt at times because other people won't relate to them in the same way that they necessarily relate to them. So it may be a learning experience for them to kind of like just go through people like not seeing or loving and appreciating things the way they do. And this goes for all aspects of Venus, you know. Leo's the fixed fire sign. So it gets to sit in the place that it sees and feels about things for a very long time. So like all of the fixed signs, they have a very deep understanding of whatever alignment they're kind of placed in, whether that be a planet or a house, you know, for all the fixed signs in general, regardless of Leo, you know, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, you know, and then there's another one. Oh, Aquarius. Yeah, Aquarius, it's opposing sign, you know. They all, like, even though they do oppose, they all kind of share the same thing of just being in the same space for so long, so they're able to just expand upon it and understand it better than anyone else because they're fixed. They have nowhere else to go. They're just, if they're trying something new, they're looking at it from their perspective. So being that Leo is the, like, you know, the fixed perspective of how they see and feel about things, they will understand, they will have a, you know, a very, it's not exactly deep, but a very like broad awareness of how they love, appreciate, and value things as well as relate to others. And this is where they kind of like, this kind of ties into like them, this is sort of like, I guess a psychological take you could like take from this is they sort of project their perspective onto others in regards to the specific planet they're placed in, you know? So it's just like, if they see and feel how they should relate to others this, and this way, early on in life, or like, depending on whatever you experience this, they may go through the situation of being like, damn, why do people not look at this the same, like, look at this the way I do? Like, I put all this light, this attention on our relationship. Why the fuck don't they do grand gestures, you know? Like, I love, appreciate, and value this person this much, and they won't do the same for me? Like, what the hell's going on, best friend? I thought we were best friends, you know? And that's the situation of a Venus and Leo person. Eventually, going through the lines, they may realize that some people just aren't into just grand gestures like that. But you have to remember that, you know, our brains aren't the internet, you know? We don't just have all information of all situations, you know, categorized and like webbed in here, you know? So we all have to go through the situation and the experience on our own terms, you know? Now, with that being said, you can apply all of this to the whole concept of love, appreciation, values, right? So if a Venus in Leo person, you know, wants to, they really appreciate like cake, you know, it would just be a whole thing. They would love to have cake all the time. Every Friday would be cake day. You know, they would have a big cake. It would probably be, the cakes would just get bigger until this person's on Cake Boss. And it just is, like I said, it's a whole big grand thing. The fire wants to grow, but in its own space. So this is why they would stick to one specific thing that they would either, you know, like I said, love, appreciate, or value. Anything, any just form of appreciation, or just like, you know, just feeling good, loving yourself, royalty, indulgence. That's Venus right there, man. Just diving into what it is you value. With that being the case, it's pretty much, this is pretty much all the examples I got anyways. So, oh, right, no, I didn't talk about the flip side of love, appreciating, and valuing. So, now, the same thing that kind of goes with the whole friendship thing is if they love, appreciate, or value something that's very important, they just make a whole big deal out of it, they may get kind of annoyed at the fact that others may not, like, love what they love as much as they do, because they're just like, hey man, you love this, you're not going to fight for it, you're not going to make a big deal out of it, like, what are you doing? Do you even really love it? And once again, this is just the whole experience of them having to go through learning that people don't just look at things the same way they do. They don't love, appreciate, and value and relate to things the same way they do. And it's just something like that, but it may hurt them because, you know, just as they make a big deal out of loving it and they make a big deal out of others not maybe taking the same perspective they do with it, they will make a big deal, a big whole, you know, show about how they feel about them not like feeling the same way they feel about it. You know? I mean, this is only if they really care about like how this other person feels and how they're not doing things the way they think they should be doing it. But it can come to that point to where they're sort of like, oh damn, you know, like I'm so caught up about this, I'm so diving deep into this. This would be like sort of a, I mean, this alignment may kind of come in handy with, like, you know, maybe there was like a Scorpio placement or an Aries placement in the sun, moon, or ascendant, but, you know, such is life. This is how Venus and Leo gets down sometimes. But yeah, I mean, anyways, that's about it, guys. You know, welcome, thanks for following our, you know, fixed fire series where we talk about the only fixed fire sign in this ecliptic, Leo. Anyways, let's run down the planets and break it down so you can understand all of these alignments and so you have the natural tools and ability to interpret this for yourself. So, Venus, the planet of love, appreciation, values, being placed in Leo. Now, what is Leo? Leo is born from the 5th house. This is the general house. This is the house that the sun's correlated to. So you can break down all different forms of expression and just attention and break it down for yourself and how that works out in the 5th house. Leo is the fixed fire sign, so it's fixated on its own way of seeing and feeling about things. This is having a fixed perspective, sitting at a fixed angle and looking at everything from this specific perspective and expanding upon it and growing it to how you see it. You know, Leo is ruled by the sun, the planet of just expression in general. You know, it's how you consciously see the world, as well as what you consciously see from the world and how you express yourself. And then Leo is away in Saturn, the planet of boundaries, restrictions, limits, and how one sees reality. Anyways, thanks for following the solar system series. Peace.